Happy Easter! Man, we are so glad to have you in the house. So thankful that you've chose to join us here on this Easter weekend. Just in case on the front end, we have not met. My name is Rick. Yeah, and that is Ren right there. I'm one of the pastors on staff. I get to work with some incredible people. And I'm just one of several on this staff who help make this church go. And I'm honored to work alongside them. I'm also a husband. I am a dad, and I am a papa. I've got one wife. That's all I can handle. She's an amazing woman. I know she feels the same way about me. I have 3 sons. All 3 of those sons were grown up in this race in this church. 3 godly men. I'm just proud to be known as their dad. And I got 3 daughter-in-laws I love, like they came from my own body so deeply. They're just beautiful human beings. I'm so fortunate. They're smart, got their act together. They're just awesome people. And I got 4 grandkids. And a 5th one is going to be born in July. Yeah. Another little boy. And I'm really excited about that too, where I am. Being a papa is my primary gig. That's my number 1 job. Being senior pastor of this church is my secondary job. It's my second gig. But I want to clarify something with you, that because this kind of comes up at this time of year during the NCAA tournament. My side gig is not being the coach of the Gonzaga Bulldogs. I am not Mark Few. I get all these texts, and I get right in the middle of the game all the time about it. I mean, there's no resemblance. I don't get it at all. But primarily, my name is Rick, and I am a sinner saved by grace. That's who I am. I want to say hi to everybody over there in the ark, everybody in the sanctuary. I'm not sure if I'm looking at this camera or that camera. I want to say hello to everybody out there in the crossing. Thank you for coming. For those that are in the standing room only sections out there, I hope you're enjoying the gourmet dinner, the lunch we provide, brunch we provided for you out there. Hope you enjoy all those people waiting on you, taking care of you. And yeah, just enjoy. Hey, we really didn't do that. I just want you to be jealous for a second who are on the front. Okay, but one year, we're going to actually do that, okay? We are. And I know some of you are here this morning because of the family thing online. I know the same thing. You've gathered around televisions in your home, and you've had the family come over, and you're there gathered because your family expected you to be there. You're not sure about the church thing. You're not sure about the God thing, and I get it. And you are especially welcome here this morning. And to tell you the truth, you are the ones I'd like to visit with just for a few minutes this morning, just for a few. And I would like to visit with you about the believability of the resurrection. Because I know for some of you, it's really hard to believe something like that really happened. So you're here this morning, you're along for the ride. It's a family thing, it's a traditional thing, and it's a cultural thing in some parts. But you're really not sure about the believability of the resurrection. So this morning, you will notice when you walked in, there were no notes for you to take notes on, which is normally what we do here. But if you'd like to take notes, you might want to, some of you who are struggling with this, because I want to give you 7 reasons, and I know that right there will cause some of you to panic. 7, that sounds like a long time. It's going to be quick, I promise you. I'm going to go through them. About 7 reasons why I believe you can believe the resurrection really happened. So I want to kind of put on my teacher hat, and to kind of help some of you, if you're afraid of it, can't take notes, is that this week they don't even know I'm going to do this, but we're going to put it on our app. You download our app. You're going to come on the very front scene. You're going to say, it says, believe, why you can believe in the resurrection. And you can find them right there. I'm going to put the 7 reasons right there for you. Make it so easy for you in case you can't take notes this morning. So let's just dive into it, and let's just see if we can learn a little bit of something. Here's the number 1 reason, not the number 1 reason, but the first reason of why you can believe the resurrection really happened, and that is the way the resurrection story ends. The way it ends. It doesn't end with a lot of joy and a lot of happiness and a lot of courage and bravery. In fact, I'm going to read from verse 8 of chapter 16, the Gospel of Mark, which is really the first story written about the resurrection of Jesus. And it says there, they were trembling and bewildered. They weren't excited. They weren't going, oh yeah, here we go. They were just really kind of worried. And not only that, it says the only women were there, and they left in silence, and it says because they were afraid. And I will tell you that if the resurrection didn't really happen and it was a story that somebody made up, they would have had a better ending. something that would encourage people and made it feel like it's something that they really want to believe. So that's one reason that you can believe that the resurrection really happened. Here's reason number two. Christianity takes its origin to one particular event in history. You may not know this, but Christianity is the only faith that exists on this earth that can trace its way back to an event that happened. Atheism can't do it. Buddhism can't do it. Islam can't do it. Even Judaism can't do it. Only Christianity can do that, is that one day the church didn't exist, and the next day it did exist. Overnight, there were people who believed the guy was dead, and the next day they believed, gosh, he really is alive. And it's traced back to a specific time in history. Number three, I would say, there are 4 biographies of Jesus. And in all 4 of them, the last week of Jesus' life is given the most attention. Now, to you, that may not be a big deal, but go read a biography of anyone. Go read it. And I promise you, the bulk of the book will not be on the last week of the person's life. But here, there's actually 4 biographies of Jesus. They're called Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They put them together in this thing called the Bible. Some people call it the Gospels, but they're really biographies of Jesus' life. And when you read them, you're going to notice half or more of the text is about the end of his life in that last week. Now, why is that? Because they believe what happened at the end and the final end was the most important thing, an event that happened that gave birth to the thing, that gave birth to the church that you and I are a part of right now. Now, in our day, many people think that the resurrection is good news. Even if you're not sure if it's true, you believe it's good and you want to believe it. A New Testament scholar by the name of N.T. Wright says the reason some of us here struggle to believe today that the resurrection really physically happened is because we think the people back there in the world who wrote some of these books were gullible. They didn't have science. They didn't understand cognitive, intelligent thinking, and they were just gullible. And so they sensed that God was present. You know, it's like for some of you, someone dies in your family, right? And they're gone, and you go to their house or their apartment, whatever, and you sense their presence while they're there. And you feel kind of inspired by that, or you're out in nature, and you sense something, and they think, well, that's what happened here. And all of a sudden they came to believe that something was true, that it really wasn't true. But that's not what was going on at all. They believed, the women who went to the tomb, they believed it was true. They really did. But they weren't sure that it was good. They weren't sure that it was good news. So this leads us to number 4 of the reasons why I think you can believe the resurrection really happened, is that one day the disciples were distraught, one day, then suddenly they were overjoyed. I mean, one day they were just devastated. And the next day they were just so full of excitement and all sorts of stuff. And it goes on in the story, days to come after that. Now, to really understand this reason, to really think this is a viable reason, you got to know the backstory. You got to know some backstory. So I'm going to put on my teaching hat, my little professor hat for a moment, to give you a little bit of history of what Jewish people really believed about life and about death and about resurrection, so you can understand why it was amazing they were distraught and then they were overjoyed, and you would understand why they were distraught. And so here's a metaphor, an analogy. I was trying to explain this best I can. It's not perfect, but I think it might help some of you. Years ago, in 1999, in fact, there was a movie called The Sixth Sense. You remember the movie The Sixth Sense? Some of you remember the movie The Sixth Sense? It starred Bruce Willis, and in it, the pivotal point in the movie is this little boy who tells Bruce Willis that he can see dead people, and the dead people don't know they're dead. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, if you've not seen this movie, don't go look at it for Easter with your kids and sit around there. It's a scary movie, okay? It is a really scary movie. It's a frightening movie. You do not want to do that, okay? Your kids will go, so don't do it. Have you ever been to a scary movie or sitting with someone, and the movie's so scary, they put, or the show, they put their hands over their face, they're so scared, and they say, tell me what happens. Doesn't that annoy the heck out of you? You know, hey, I don't want to see. Tell me what happens. What happened? What happened? What happened? You know, or the tension gets so big. The tension gets so big in the movie, they reach over and they take your hand and they find one finger and they start pulling that finger back. And the more scary they get, the more they pull. Like if they inflict pain on you, they feel better, right? And so you're just going there. So, Dallas and I are watching that movie, and the tension gets so intense, all of a sudden, Dallas says to me, if you don't let go of my finger, I'm changing seats. I'm telling you, it's a scary, scary movie. It's talking about death. And anytime you're talking about death with people, sometimes that brings up a lot of stuff. And spoiler alert, for anybody who's not seen it, you're going to go now, hey, I want to go see that movie. Or you're going to go find it somewhere. Is that, here's spoiler alert, at the very end, close your ears if you're going to watch it, is that Bruce Willis finds out he's dead, and he didn't know it, he was dead the whole time. Now, I want you to hang on to that concept. In the ancient world and in our world, people really struggle with this concept of dying. It's an issue. We don't know what to do with it. In the ancient world, there was one way of believing that when someone died, you went out like a candle. It was over. So much so, there was a very famous epitaph that was put on tombstones that you would find it in Greek and Latin. And we'll put it up here on the screen. I'll read it to you. It says, I was not, I was, I am not, I don't care. Or were you inspired by that? Pretty downer. But that's what they believed, that life was just, you die and it's over. There was another group of people who believed in something called the underworld. Some of you have called it Hades. That when you die, your spirit would depart from your body, and it would go into this underworld, this kind of dark, kind of mysterious sort of place, and your spirit has this shadowy experience, and it gets trapped in this spot, but it never can come back into the real world. The Jews, the Hebrew people, had another belief about the afterlife way before Jesus ever showed up on the scene. And they believed in resurrection. They believed there would come a time when God would resurrect the righteous back into existence and allow them to enjoy the creation that He has healed. They believed that God would step into the reality of the world that you and I live and forgive sin. God would end injustice. He would end suffering. He would heal the creation and bring the faithful back to life to enjoy the creation that He had made and really just enjoy it. They believed that. And they believed, this is very important, they believed when it happened, it would happen at the end of history. They believed also it would be a mass thing where lots of folks would be raised at the same time, and it'd be very dramatic and obvious and evident to everybody. And so to say to them that one person was resurrected, and a leader, a Messiah, in the middle of history, right in the middle, before that time, they would say, hey, listen, has sin been eradicated? Has suffering ended? Has disease been taken off the earth? Has the pain and suffering of divorce and dysfunctional families, has that all been eradicated? If that hasn't, stop talking nonsense. It can't be true. It didn't happen. Because they believed resurrection was a team sport. It wasn't just one person, it was a lot of people. To say that Jesus was resurrected be kind of like saying that Corey Seager, the shortstop of the Texas Rangers, is going to win the most valuable player of the World Series again this year, even though the Rangers won't even make the playoffs. You would go, well, that can't happen, Pastor. That's impossible. And that's what they would say. They would say that is impossible for that man to be raised from the dead because that altered their entire belief system. They believed Jesus was an amazing rabbi. And he taught like all the other spiritual teachers, like no other rabbi, because he talked about having an intimate relationship with God. And they believed he was the Messiah. They believed that he would overthrow Rome and restore the power of Israel. But when Jesus started talking about dying, here's the twist. When he started talking about dying, nobody got excited. In fact, they started leaving. Go read the biography. They started deserting him. They started running away. No, that can't be true. You're not going to die. That can't happen. And when he did die, when he's going toward the cross, nobody said, yes, everything is going just as planned. Good news is about to happen. The scriptures say they ran, they hid, they were distraught, they were disillusioned, they were dismayed, and then suddenly they weren't. They were overjoyed. They were excited. Why? Because it really happened. They believed it was true that one guy, a man, was dead. The next day he rose from the dead. And sometimes still people will say, you'll still kind of think in modern days, you'll think, well, you know those people back then, they were just gullible. They just believed stuff back in that day that we ourselves in our day, we're so educated. We have all this access to knowledge and information. And C.S. Lewis would say that is chronological snobbery. To believe that we are smarter and more intelligent than people years ago. They understood when a dead person dies, they stay dead. Kind of like this. There was this woman looking out her kitchen window, and she sees her German Shepherd coming back from the neighbor's yard with a rabbit in the dog's mouth, shaking just shaking the life out of that rabbit. And she panics because that she knows that's from the neighbor's house, and they don't have a good relationship with that neighbor, and so it's going to be trouble, it's going to be drama, it's going to be conflict. So she runs out there with her broom, just kind of pummeling her German Shepherd to get him to drop the rabbit, and the rabbit's dead. She picks that rabbit up, takes it inside the house, and gives that dead rabbit a bath. Then she gets the blow dryer and starts blow drying the rabbit till the hair starts fluffing up. And then she gets a comb and brushes it till that rabbit looks alive again. Then she sneaks over to her neighbor's yard, goes onto the back porch, opens the little cage there, and plops that rabbit back in the cage to make it look alive, sneaks back to her house. It's not very long before she hears this, ah! She runs over to the neighbor, kind of fainting, goes, what's wrong? What happened? Our rabbit, it died 2 weeks ago and we buried it. It's back to life. In the ancient world, Jewish people believed dead rabbits stay dead. So when Jesus rose from the dead, really? You got to believe that? It turned their thinking upside down. N.T. Wright, scholar, says it this way. There were many, many messianic movements in the first century. In every case, the would-be Messiah got crucified by Rome as Jesus did. And in not one single case do we hear the slightest mention of the disappointed followers claiming their hero had been risen from the dead. They knew better. How did they know better? Because dead people stay dead. Except two things happened. The most startling things, the most believable reason why the resurrection really happened. In your notes, on number 5, if you're taking notes, we'll put it on the screen. Witnesses saw the tomb was empty, and Jesus appeared to his followers. And the combination of these two things became the reality for those unbelieving Jews and Hebrew people that it really did happen. And you had to have both. One without the other wouldn't do it. If the tomb was empty, and they did not see Jesus' body, skeptics would say that somebody must have just robbed the grave. And he didn't really, but he appeared just when the tomb was empty, but he really did appear. In this book called the Bible, the Apostle Paul, some 2 decades later, he says this right here in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. He says at the beginning of verse 5, and that he appeared to Cephas, that is Peter, and then to the 12, and after that he appeared to more than 500 of the brothers and sisters at the same time, most of whom who are still asleep, though some have fallen asleep. So it's evident. They said, we saw him. But if the body had been in the tomb still, and if they had gone around saying we saw him, but but the body was still in the tomb, the skeptics would say, hey, listen, those people who call themselves Christians, they've been smoking something. They're hallucinating. They're on medication. They're having all this stuff going on. But not only was the body in the tomb, out of the tomb, they saw him. It was both and. And if the Romans would have had the body, themselves, they would have shown it. They would have made everybody, it would have been recorded in history. Because every time a Messiah died, some alleged Messiah, their followers would create a shrine out of that little place where they were buried, and they wouldn't have had any of that. But the fact of the matter is both and. The tomb was empty, and he appeared. You can believe it. It is true. And here's the sixth reason that's very obvious, is that it was women who were the first ones to the tomb who were eyewitnesses to the fact. It was the women who were the eyewitnesses. And some of you, and it just kind of, isn't it, today, hopefully today, most of you, you read that verse, it's not obvious to you. Because over here in Mark chapter 15, Mark 16, when they read that one verse right there, we see three women were the first one there to come to the tomb to see Jesus. And you go, oh, no big deal. But in that world, it's a big deal. Because a woman, very low on the totem pole, a woman would not get a jury summons because their testimony or their belief system, they would not think they could be a good juror. They would not be asked to testify in a trial. If you commit a crime and a woman was to see it and they were the only ones to see it, you would go off scot-free. Because they did not believe that a woman's credible. So if you were going to make up this story, you wouldn't have had women as the witnesses, and every single biography say it was women. Why? Because it was women, and they saw it, and it was true. The tomb was empty, and they saw the Lord Jesus himself. It is true. And still, some of us, we kind of doubt this. The most plausible reason is not all those facts. The most plausible reason to believe it is the impact that it had upon their lives. Because, here's number seven, that all of a sudden, these crippled little Christians, they begin to see that through the resurrection of Jesus, a power was released. A transforming power. And they begin to experience that transforming power in their own life, and they begin to change. And so these little folks that became followers of Jesus, all of a sudden they began to say, we are a resurrection community, and we're experiencing this new life even now. They say stuff like this: once we were dead in our sin, we were dead apart from God. But God promised that he would come, that he would forgive sin, that he would heal all suffering, that he would redeem humanity. And now we understand, now we know it days after, that God was doing that through the resurrection of Jesus, making all of his promises come true. You can trust him because they themselves experienced that transformation in that life. And 3 days later, they really understood that when Jesus got off that slab and the stone had been rolled away, and he walked to the edge of the door of that tomb, and he stood right there, the next step, the step he took, that one step out of the tomb, changed history forever. It changed everything. One step changed everything. I want to share with you an email from a woman, from a transformation experience she had because of the resurrection of Jesus during our Unstuck series, and it goes like this. Pastor, I have lived most of my life living afar from God. My parents took me to church occasionally growing up, but we did not really practice faith in our home. My mom and dad divorced when I was 13. My mom left me with my dad. For the most part, has not been a part of my life. My dad walked away from his faith and went through several marriages until he gave up on being married at all. I had no good example in my life that suggested it was important to believe in God, so I didn't. I had to learn how to take care of myself and count on no one but myself. I got pretty good at it. So while in college, I majored in philosophy and read everything I could about religion and faith and asking questions as often as I could. I was searching for answers to how my life had turned out to be a sad tale of loneliness and emptiness. And down deep, I think I believed if I had enough information, I could make sense of why my mom and dad divorced and prove or disprove once and for all the existence of God. I wanted to believe in God, but I could not wrap my head how a good God would allow my life to turn out the way it has. During your Unstuck series, I began to realize when you taught step 3, by flying through the air on that trapeze and getting caught by the catcher, of the limitations of my own self-sufficiency, pride, and cerebral IQ. I realized it wasn't lack of information, But I had commitment issues. I had never surrendered my life to God because I knew if I did, I would have to let go of my anger and my pride. I would have to let go of my trust issues. But while watching at home, I realized I did believe. And there was a greater power than me that God did raise Jesus from the dead. And I wanted to turn my life over into his care. I was watching online from my kitchen, but my TV was in my family room. When you invited us to raise and stretch out our hands, surrendering to God, trusting he would catch us like he did Jesus, I walked to the doorway leading to my family room. I raised up my hands and I said out loud to God, God, when I step across this line, I'm leaving my old life behind and trusting that you're going to catch me. I want Jesus to be my friend, my forgiver, and my leader. I want you to be your daughter. And she says, this is the biggest step I've ever taken in my life. And whenever I have doubt, she would say, and I feel lonely, I will go back to that kitchen door and I will stand right there and I will take that one step to remind me that God is bringing me into a new reality. You can take that step here yourself this morning. Ark, Sanctuary, in this room, online. Last summer, I was in the pool with my oldest granddaughter and grandson, Ryder and Lennox. And Lennox can swim like a fish. Ryder thinks he can swim like a fish. He was 2. They were jumping off the side of the pool, stepping off of the pool one at a time. And Ryder's got his floaties on. Lennox doesn't need them. And she's jumping. So she jumped off, and I was playing with her, having a great time. And I looked up, and somehow in the mist, Ryder did an escape thing like Houdini and got out of his floaties. And he's just standing there on the edge of the pool, daring, looking at me going, get ready, Papa. And he just steps off into the water. And he just sinks to the bottom. And I step over there to him, and I look down. His eyes are open. He's just smiling at me. I pull him up out of the water, put him in my arm, have Lennox in his arm. Lennox going, Papa, 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 Ryder's drowning. Ryder's almost drowning. Ryder's drowning. I said, no, he's not. He's not drowning. He's not even a mile from drowning. And whatever you do, don't say anything about this to your mom and dad. Because they will not understand what I know. Papa was watching the whole time. And as soon as Ryder took that step and went under the water and he felt like he was sinking, Papa was right there, grabbed him in his arms and picked him up, holding you at the same time. You have never been more alive and safe than you are right now. And I want to say to you, it's not just good news, it's true news. That Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life, and anyone who believes in me, even though they die, yet you will live. And anyone who believes in me and lives, you'll never die. You can believe it. It's not just some little hope. It's not just some little metaphor. The Father's arms are strong, and not even death can rip you from his arms. Your guilt, your shame, your backstory, your addiction, I don't care what it is, cannot separate you from the love of God through Jesus Christ, the one who entered the tomb. Nothing. But you've got to take that one step. And if you take that one step, resurrection's coming. If your body is getting old and tired, and your body is sick with cancer or something else, and you're living in fear, resurrection's coming. If you're a husband, you're a wife, and your husband, your wife just suddenly left up and left you there hanging, and you just caught off guard, and you're kind of stunned still, and you feel like a loser. You don't have to live that way, living like a failure. Resurrection is coming to you. To that couple who is childless, whose womb remains empty. And you just long to have someone call you mama and come and dad. If you're taking that step, I want you to know the resurrection's coming to you. To those parents who have that child who's kind of got off, that child's kind of wandered away, and you feel all the weight. I mean, they're lonely, they're struggling, their child is struggling, and you feel the burden of guilt. You feel like you're to blame. Please don't look at that. Resurrection is coming to you if you've taken that step. It's coming, I promise you. And if you're a lonely young person, you go to school, you think nobody sees you. You're scared of getting out of high school to go into this world that's so full of humanity and no one will ever know. You feel resurrection's coming to you. And if you're an addict, You got something you can't get past, and you take one step forward and you go two backwards every time. Don't give up hope. You keep working those steps because resurrection is coming. And if you are grieving the death of someone that you love so deeply, a son or daughter that died before you, parents, a mom or a dad, and you're grieving so deep you can hardly stand it. If you've taken that step, please hear, resurrection is coming. It's coming. You just got to take that step. The Father's arms are strong enough, and they will catch you. I promise you, if you'll take that step. I want to invite everybody to stand. Sanctuary stand, ark stand, crossing, you're already standing, just stay standing. And I'm going to give somebody a chance to take that step right now. You can do it, and I want you to help them. So ark, sanctuary, everybody, I want you to repeat after me out loud. First time, long time. You ready? I want to hear it out loud. You can take this step. God, help me. I surrender my life and my will to your care. Forgive my sin. Restore me to sanity. Use me to be a blessing in my family. In Jesus' name, amen. Can we clap for everybody who did that this morning? Can we celebrate? Can we do that? Yeah, that's you. And if you've done that, let us know, because next weekend you can be baptized, be part of the incredible celebration, and the Father will catch you and pull you up into new life. That can be you. Resurrection is coming. Let me hear you. Resurrection is coming.